Hello everyone, welcome to English Mirror. Today we're going to see the rise of Methodism, an 18th century movement that sought to reform the Church of England from within. So let's go to the video. During the 18th century, the condition of society in England was deplorable. Due to the revolutions in the spheres of industry and agriculture, there was a mass migration of the poor to the cities. Desperate for work, these people were prepared to take up whatever was offered. Working conditions were terrible, and they were forced to live in slums that were unsanitary and crowded. The poor had no protection against unemployment. Under the system of apprenticeship, where the parents of a boy paid the master for teaching the trade, a lot of exploitation existed. The moral condition of such people was as wretched as their physical state. Drinking and gambling were the two vices that were rampant. The people were very fond of brutal sports like cockfighting and bear baiting. Football matches played on the streets ended in bloody brawls. Boxing matches between women attracted large crowds. People indulged in smuggling and wrecking. The dangerous practice of wrecking unwary ships on the western shores of England and looting their goods. The taverns became the focal point of the poor and the helpless. Quite a few taverns became notorious for riot and debauchery. As a result of drinking and gambling, the poor often landed in the debtor's prison. Conditions in these prisons were terrible. Church-going became irregular. Thousands of slum dwellers in the cities did not go to church at all and were ignorant heathens. This was the condition of English society when the Wesley brothers appeared on the scene. Methodism was a movement begun by a group of students at Oxford University in the 1720s. Their aim was to lead disciplined and methodical lives. They were very spiritual and practiced good habits. These activities earned them the name Methodist. The Wesley brothers, John and Charles, along with George Whitefield, all of whom were Methodist, began a missionary crusade in England and Wales. Methodism was a purely religious movement. They wished to reach the vast mass of human beings who were neglected by the church and the state. The founders of the movement not only preached all over the country themselves, but sent out preachers on similar missions. Both the Wesley brothers and Whitefield preached in the open air to enormous congregations, sometimes numbering 30,000 or 40,000 people. The Methodists tried to teach the people to lead an active, selfless Christian life. They focused on thrift, toil, abstinence, and discipline. They wanted to save their own souls and also to help others. They were filled with humanitarian feelings and began to visit prisoners in jail. Service was the keynote of the Methodist. Many of them began to teach the poor children living in the slums. John Wesley had a marvelous ability for organization, and he formed many societies. He employed members of the laity as preachers, and some of these lay preachers were very prominent men. There were two reasons behind the success of the Methodist movement. One was their extraordinary energy, and the other was their remarkable power as preachers. George Whitefield was especially good. His speeches were so astonishingly excellent that he often had his whole congregation weeping or falling upon the ground in utter remorse. The early reaction to the Methodist by the established clergy was one of extreme hostility. The clergy lacked the religious zeal of the Methodist, so they could not bear their enthusiasm. The Methodists were able to attract the people who were neglected by the clergy. This irritated the clergy who tried to obstruct the Methodists. They would let loose hostile mobs upon the Wesley brothers. The initial years were therefore very painful for the Methodists, but they faced all these difficulties with a smile and eventually won the respect of their enemies. After 1745, the persecution died down and the new movement began to flourish. The most important effect of Methodism was that an awareness of good and evil was created among the mass of people who were abandoned by polite society. The Methodists tried to teach people to lead a Christian and civilized life. Wesley forbade his followers from indulging in gambling, fighting, and drinking. He tried to inspire the people to lead good and virtuous lives with his own life as an example. The evangelical movement in the Church of England was a direct outcome of the Methodist movement. The evangelical movement tried to fight against the indifference of the 18th century and attempted to revive Puritanism. Spiritual devotion was the chief aim of this movement. Many devout and earnest men became preachers of its doctrines. It particularly influenced the members of Cambridge University. Methodism gave to 18th century England another immortal gift. It enhanced the beauty of the Christian religion with joyful hymns. People like Isaac Watts and Charles Wesley produced several hymns which became popular at once. Above all else, we may see the influence of the Methodists on the religious life of the entire British nation. There is no doubt that the early period of Hanoverian rule was singularly lacking in religious activities and enthusiasm. It was the spiritual zeal of John Wesley that restored Christianity as a living force in the daily life of the nation. There is, however, another side to the picture. Wesley's power was founded largely on an appeal to the emotion of fear. He was himself an extremely superstitious man who believed in witches and in quack medicines. Methodism was anti-intellectual. It was hostile to Jews and Catholics and put up with child labor in the factories. Nevertheless, With the spread of Methodism, a new spirit of kindness and mercy took possession of the people, leading to a spirit of humanitarian activities throughout the second half of the 18th century. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please share and subscribe.